Hello, everybody. All right, so we're going to take a look at part two, The Return of Odysseus. And this is on page 1022 of your texts. We're looking at page 993 here on the PDF. So remember what I told you in part one, that these things in italics kind of give you background about what's going on, and also what you're about to see. If you see on page 1022, there's a very long section, well, a fairly long section here in italics, that's basically telling you that Odysseus has just finished telling his story to the Phaeacians. Remember, part one is entirely Odysseus relating his adventures as a storyteller in King Alcinous's castle, basically telling him about what he has done and how he's gotten there. So the king, after hearing his story, decides that he is going to help him get back to Ithaca. So he gives Odysseus a ship and takes him back and drops him basically off at Odysseus and says, "See ya." Meanwhile, Athena appears in Ithaca and tells him that are crazy things going on at home, that there are a bunch of suitors. Those are people who are asking for Penelope's hand in marriage, hanging out, basically living in his hall, eating his food, destroying his crops, and basically waiting for Penelope to choose one of them to marry them. If Penelope chooses one of them, they become the king of Ithaca. So that's kind of why they're hanging out there. They're also plotting to murder Odysseus' son Telemachus before he can inherit. Now, one of the things that you need to know is that in the Greek tradition, a man can inherit his father's lands and castles and like basically be considered an adult when he first begins to grow a beard on his chin. And Telemachus at this point is just over 20 years old. He was born right before Odysseus went off to fight in the Trojan War. So he's getting close to having a beard on his chin, essentially. And so people want to kill him before he gets to that point. So Telemachus, in the meantime, has journeyed away from Ithaca to try to find out what he can about his fate. So Telemachus is returning home to Ithaca basically at the same time that Odysseus has landed there. And Athena decides she's going to help Odysseus sneak onto Ithaca and see what's going on. So she disguises him as a beggar and sends him to his old swineherd's hut. And basically, the swineherd doesn't know who Odysseus is. Um, and he's there just as an old beggar eating with the swineherd when Telemachus appears. And the next part right here is describing Athena when she shows herself to Odysseus. From the air she walked, taking the form of a tall woman, handsome and clever at her craft, and stood beyond the gate in plain sight of Odysseus, unseen though by Telemachus, unguessed, for not to everyone will gods appear. Odysseus noticed her, so did the dogs, who cowered whimpering away from her. She only nodded, signing to him with her brows, a sign he recognized. Crossing the yard, he passed out through the gate in the stockade to face the goddess. There she said to him, so Odysseus can see Athena, but nobody else can, and Athena kind of gestures to him to come with her. So he leaves the gate, and there Telemachus is. Athena says to Odysseus, son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of landways and seaways. See that epithet she's using there? Dissemble to your son no longer now. The time has come. Tell him how you together will bring doom on the suitors in the town. I shall not be far distant then, for I myself desire battle. Of course she does. She's the goddess of war, right? All right. Saying no more, she tipped her golden wand upon the man, making his cloak pure white, and the knit tunic fresh around him. Lithe and young she made him, ruddy with the sun, his jawline clean, the beard no longer gray upon his chin, and she withdrew when she had done. Then Lord Odysseus reappeared, and his son was thunderstruck. So, of course, his son is thunderstruck because if you don't get what Athena just did, she literally just changed him before Telemachus's eyes from this old, rundown beggar man to like a young or younger looking youthful Odysseus with like a clean tunic and everything. He looks beautiful again. So Telemachus didn't see Athena. All he saw was this one old man go from being an old man to a young man, basically before his eyes. Fear in his eyes, he looked down away as though he were a god and whispered, "Stranger, you are no longer what you were just now. Your cloak is new, even your skin. You are one of the gods who rule the sweep of heaven. Be kind to us, and we'll make you fair oblation and gifts of hammered gold. Have mercy on us." The noble and enduring man replied, that's Odysseus, "No god. Why take me for a god? No, no. I am that father whom your boyhood lacked and suffered pain for lack of. I am he." Held back too long, the tears ran down his cheeks and he embraced his son. Only Telemachus, uncomprehending, wild with incredulity, cried out, "You cannot be my father, Odysseus. Meddling spirits conceive this trick to twist the knife in me. No man of woman born could work these wonders by his own craft unless a god came into it, with ease to turn him young or old at will. I swear you were in rags and old, and here you stand like one of the immortals." So, of course, Telemachus thinks that Odysseus is a god and doesn't believe that he's actually Odysseus. Odysseus brought his ranging mind to bear and said, "This is not princely to be swept away at wonder by your father's presence. No other Odysseus will ever come, for he and I are one, the same. His bitter fortune and his wanderings are mine. 20 years gone, and I am back again on my own island. As for my change of skin, that is a charm Athena, hope of soldiers, uses as she will. She has the knack to make me seem a beggar man sometimes, and sometimes young, with finer clothes about me. It is no hard thing for the gods of heaven to glorify a man or bring him low." When he had spoken, he sat down. Then, throwing his arms around his marvel of a father, Telemachus began to weep. Salt tears rose from the well of longing in both men, and cries burst from both as keen and fluttering as though of a great taloned hawk, whose nestlings farmers take before they fly. So helplessly they cried, pouring out tears, and might have gone on weeping so till sundown, had not Telemachus said, "Dear father, tell me what kind of vessel put you here ashore on Ithaca? Your sailors, who were they? I doubt you made it walking on the sea." Then said Odysseus, who had borne the barren sea, "Only plain truth shall I tell you, child. Great seafarers, the Phaeacians, gave me passage, as they gave other wanderers. By night over the open ocean while I slept, they brought me in their cutter, set me down on Ithaca with gifts of bronze and gold and stores of woven things. By the gods' will, these lie all hidden in a cave. I came to this wild place, directed by Athena, so that we might lay plans to kill our enemies. Count up the suitors for me. Let me know what men at arms are there, how many men. I must put all my mind to it, to see if we two by ourselves can take them on, or if we should look round for help." So Odysseus wants to know how many suitors are waiting there for them, because he wants to know, can he and Telemachus kind of take care of them on their own, or should they look for other people to get help from? Telemachus replied, "O father, all my life your fame as a fighting man has echoed in my ears, your skill with weapons and the tricks of war. But what you speak of is a staggering thing, beyond imagining for me. How can two men do battle with a houseful in their prime? For I must tell you, this is no affair of 10 or even twice 10 men, but scores, throngs of them. You shall see here and now. The number from Dulichium alone is 52 picked men with armorers, half a dozen. 24 came from Same, 20 from Zacynthus. Our own island accounts for 12, high ranked in their retainers, Medon the crier and the master harper, besides a pair of handymen at feast." Now, if you take a look at those numbers, we've got 52 with armors, a half a dozen, that's 6, 52 plus 6, plus 24 from Same, plus 20 from Zacynthus, plus 12 from Ithaca, plus 2 more, Medon the crier and master harper, plus 2 more handymen at feasts, plus all of their servants. We're looking at 108 suitors plus all of their servants that have come along with them. So that's a lot of men that he has to fight against. So Telemachus says, "If we go in against all these, I fear we play in salt blood for your vengeance. You must think hard if you would conjure up the fighting strength to take us through." Odysseus, who had endured the long war and the sea, answered, "I'll tell you now. Suppose Athena's arm is over us, and Zeus her father's. Must I rack my brains for more?" Clear-headed Telemachus looked hard and said, "Those two are great defenders, no one doubts it, but throned in the serene clouds overhead, other affairs of men and gods they have to rule over." And the hero answered, "Before long they will stand to right and left of us in combat, in the shouting when the test comes. Our nerve against the suitors in my hall. Here is your part." Okay, so he says Athena and Zeus will help them. So they should have enough, right? Odysseus says, but Telemachus still kind of doubts that the gods are going to be able to actually help them. So now Odysseus is going to give Telemachus some instructions for what he has to do. "Here is your part. At break of day tomorrow, home with you. Go mingle with our princes. The swineherd later on will take me down to the portside trail, a beggar by my looks, hangdog and old. If they make fun of me in my courtyard, let your ribs cage up, your springing heart, no matter what I suffer, no matter if they pull me by the heels or practice shots at me to drive me out. Look on, hold down your anger. You may even plead with them by heaven, in gentle terms, to quit their horseplay, not that they will heed you, rash as they are, facing their day of wrath." Okay, so Odysseus says, first, return to Ithaca. I'll come later. I'll be looking like a beggar. But don't get angry if the suitors are teasing me or picking on me. Okay, so now at this point here, now fix the next step in your mind. He's going to give him more suggestions about what to do. And that's going to take you to the end of the story. I want you to read that on your own. And tomorrow or when we meet again, we'll talk about that. What steps did Telemachus need to do according to what Odysseus asks him? So finish that up on your own. Also, tomorrow, before we see each other again on Thursday, I want you to read the story Argus, figure out what it's saying, and the story The Suitors, which is also a little bit shorter, and that's about what happens when Odysseus actually steps foot into his hall and meets the suitors again for the first time. So read those two on your own and fill out the hero's logs for them as your assignment before I see you again on Thursday.